Nathan Trapuzzano woke up every day at 5 a.m. to go for a jog. He'd usually be back by 6 a.m., but this day was different. His pregnant wife Jennifer woke up at about 7 a.m. on April 1st, 2014, but Nathan was nowhere to be found, and this was very unlike him. He was a very schedule-oriented person and would always let Jen know if he planned to be out late. So where was he? Something hollow and dreadful was growing in Jennifer's gut. She could sense that something was terribly wrong. Call it a sixth sense, pregnancy instinct, or a wife's intuition, but she grabbed her coat and went out to look for Nathan, partly to calm her own nerves, but partly hoping to run into him on the road. She was expecting Nathan to appear out of a corner any second, with his signature smile and apologies on his tongue for being late. But what Jennifer didn't expect to see were police cars and yellow crime scene tape. Welcome to True Crime Stories. If you're new here, I'm your host, Ty Knotts, and I post new true crime documentaries every single week. So if you're into that kind of thing, and let's be honest, if you're watching this video, you probably are, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything, and it just keeps you up to date with all my future videos. Nathan Trapuzzano was the fourth of 5 children born and raised in Sewickley, Pennsylvania. Nathan was defined as an all-around great guy who loved music of any kind. As long as it had a good beat, it was Nathan's favorite. Nathan was known for being a calm, level-headed, and just decent guy all around. After graduating high school, Nathan wanted to go down the path of becoming an actuary, financial analyst, or something along those lines. But he realized that he loved classical arts more. Latin, Greek, and other languages and cultures consumed Nathan's mind, and that's what he chose in the end. Nathan attended Ball State University and studied Latin, Greek, and classical studies, and he graduated in 2011. This was the place where he met his future wife, Jennifer. Jennifer and Nathan had a lot in common, so they quickly connected, and their relationship blossomed into something permanent. They were both devout Christians, and Jennifer was at Ball State University studying to become a nurse. Nathan and Jennifer were very young, but they knew that they had found their forever person. So in May of 2013, the couple got married, and things were just getting better and better for them, especially when Jennifer found out she was pregnant. Nathan and Jennifer soon found out that they were going to be having a girl, and they picked the perfect name for her, Cecilia Marie. Nathan and Jennifer, right after their marriage, moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, where Nathan got a job as a computer programmer at Ivy Tech Community College. This was yet another quality of Nathan's. He was extremely skilled and didn't shy away from learning anything new. So the couple settled down permanently in Indiana, and Nathan was counting down the days until he could finally meet his daughter. But unfortunately, being a father wasn't in the cards for Nathan. Not because he didn't want it, but because someone would steal that opportunity away from him and leave a trail of terror in their wake. April 1st of 2014 was a normal day for 24-year-old Nathan. He had a routine of waking up early in the morning, grabbing his running shoes, and going for a walk in the neighborhood. Nathan was a regular walker or runner, so whenever he passed by shops or even houses on his route, he'd stop and wave at everybody. And the same thing happened on April 1st. He took his usual route, but this time he wouldn't make it back home. Back at home, Jennifer woke up at around 7 a.m. and realized that Nathan still hadn't returned from his walk. He usually went for a walk or a run at about 5 a.m., and the walk would be about an hour long, so where was he? Well, Jennifer began to worry a lot because this wasn't normal at all. So she got up, left the house, and took the same route Nathan took every single day. But nothing could have prepared Jennifer for what lay ahead, and how a seemingly normal day in April of 2014 would change everything for the worse. In the meantime, 911 received a call a little before 6 a.m. that same day. It was a woman who'd seen a man collapse to the ground, clutching his midsection and screaming for help. As soon as the woman hung up the phone, she went outside and was horrified by the scene in front of her. A young man, probably in his 20s, had a single wound to his stomach, and he was shirtless. He was conscious, but visibly in shock. The shirt was later found just a few steps away from the wounded man. The emergency services arrived in record time, and even then the man was fortunately alive. But it seemed like from that point on, his condition had started to worsen. He was slowly slipping in and out of consciousness. His wound was severe, and he was rushed to a nearby hospital while police began taping off the area with crime scene tape. But within minutes of arriving at the hospital and getting wheeled in for emergency surgery, the man tragically wouldn't make it. He passed away at 7:40 a.m. Speaking of the time, Nathan's heavily pregnant wife, Jennifer, was walking down the road trying to keep her breathing in check. She was so worried about Nathan, and a mixture of fear and anxiety was eating away at her from the inside. Well, as soon as she reached the end of the road, she saw the police cars and the crime tape. Jennifer's head and world were spinning out of control. When she approached the police officers and asked them what had happened, she was given the rundown. A young man who was on a walk was attacked by an armed assailant. Jennifer was unable to breathe because everything sounded eerily similar, so she quickly pulled out her phone and showed the police pictures of her husband, Nathan. Now, it was the police's turn to be shell-shocked. They were looking at pictures of the same man who'd just been attacked and taken away in the ambulance for emergency surgery. That's when the police got to know the identity of the man. He was 24-year-old Nathan Trapuzzano. This was also the moment when Jennifer was struck with the horrible news that her husband was not in great condition. But it seemed like Jennifer was in for a painful ride because at 7:40 a.m., when the police got to know that the young man hadn't made it, they broke this terrible news to Jennifer, whose world shattered right then and there. Nathan, who was so excited to become a father and was just weeks away from meeting Cecilia, was now tragically gone. The police were stumped. Why would a defenseless man be attacked like that, and how? Luckily, the police were able to talk to a couple of shops and houses nearby, and they happened to have surveillance cameras pointed right at the place where Nathan was attacked. So this was as good a place as any for police to look into the incident. A tire shop owner, who knew Nathan well and saw him walk and run down the same path every single day, let the police see the CCTV footage, and it was both fortunate and unfortunate for the police and everyone. Fortunate because they had been able to see how Nathan was attacked, but unfortunate because, tragically, this camera caught everything. How Nathan was approached by the armed assailant and how he was subdued and attacked. It's so chilling to think that a surveillance camera caught Nathan's final, painful, and devastating moments. The footage showed Nathan walking down the route that he normally took, but unbeknownst to him, he was being followed by someone. At first, the person behind Nathan was also seen walking, but later he sprinted towards Nathan and subdued him with a firearm. A complying Nathan was backed into a corner while the assailant, most likely a robber, was pointing a .40 caliber firearm at him. At one point, Nathan was seen raising his hands and even taking off his shirt and shoes for reasons that we don't know. What was so bizarre was that a while later, while Nathan still had his hands up, another man could be seen behind the armed robber. The police suspected him to be an accomplice, a lookout guy, if you will. Seconds later, the armed man turned impatient and aggressive, and he fired a single round, causing Nathan to collapse to the ground, and the two mysterious men just ran away, out of frame and probably towards the main road. This was such a terrifying clip, even for the police to see, and from the looks of it, the incident looked like a robbery gone wrong. See, Nathan always left his valuables, like his phone and wallet, at home, because he went on walks early in the morning and even evenings, so it was better to be safe than sorry. The police believed that the armed robber approached Nathan and tried to rob him, but when he found out that he didn't have anything on him, he was attacked and the perpetrator made a run for it. The police also believed it could have been a botched robbery. Maybe the robber didn't mean to shoot, and he was also scared and on edge and pulled the trigger in that very state. Another theory the police had was a possible gang initiation. A lot of sketchy gangs have this really inhumane ritual of sorts in which new members have to prove themselves by either stealing something or attacking someone. But no matter how many theories anyone had, the police had to catch this robber turned murderer. Even though the footage was helpful, it was still dark and grainy, and besides the clothing the armed assailant was wearing, which was pretty basic to begin with, the police had very few leads. They also couldn't figure out who this second person was. All the police could do was analyze the surveillance video, ask people around, and hopefully, before long, find some sort of evidence. At this point, a week had passed since Nathan's attack, and the police were looking into more firearm attacks in the area. Unfortunately, Indianapolis was plagued by several firearm attacks in the last couple of months, so trying to find Nathan's attacker was like finding a needle in a haystack. But days later, on April 8th, the police got to know about another firearm attack, and this time, the person taken to the hospital was a 16-year-old Simeon Adams, who went by the nickname of Red. He had a serious wound on his neck. While Simeon was in surgery, the police talked to people who knew him and found out how he got injured in the first place. Was he another victim like Nathan? And if so, then who was the armed loon on the loose? Well, the police talked to the person who attacked Simeon. His name was Eric, and what he told the police turned the case completely on its head. According to Eric, he'd been minding his own business when Simeon just attacked him out of the blue. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. This caused Eric to attack Simeon in self-defense, finally causing the vicious brawl to stop. But what the police found weird and unsettling was the fact that this attack had taken place not long after Nathan's attack, so things were looking very suspicious. But following this conversation with Eric, the police went ahead and looked into the 16-year-old wounded boy himself, and what they found was truly appalling. It turned out that Simeon was a prime suspect in a robbery that had taken place in March of that same year, so literally a week before the attack on Nathan. Simeon and his minions had broken into a firearms shop and managed to steal several firearms. If that wasn't enough, Simeon also tried to steal a car outside of a club on April 1st, just a couple of hours before the attack on Nathan. But he was unsuccessful because he was caught by a bouncer and forced to leave. To make matters worse, the club was close to the area where Nathan was attacked at around 6 a.m. Worse yet, the shell casings found in the firearms shop, as well as near Nathan's body, were a match. Now, they just had to find the weapon itself. So the pieces finally started to fall into place. Simeon went from being a victim of a vicious armed criminal, as initially thought by the police, to a full-on person of interest, or should I say prime suspect, in Nathan's attack. The police had to talk to Simeon about what he knew about Nathan and whether he attacked him or not. But that wasn't going to be easy. Simeon was still in surgery and his condition was critical. The police had their fingers crossed because they needed Simeon to pull through so that he could answer some vital questions. Questions that could help solve Nathan's bizarre and senseless attack and subsequent passing. So while the police were waiting for Simeon to gain consciousness, they dug some more. They talked to Simeon's friends and even family, and it was safe to say that this 16-year-old was a menace. He'd been involved in a lot of petty crimes, and paired with a firearm, he was a dangerous person, one you wouldn't want to cross paths with. Simeon's cousin eventually came forward to the police with some information, and that really hit the nail on the head. When Simeon's cousin was shown the surveillance footage, he immediately identified Simeon as the person walking and then sprinting towards Nathan on his morning walk. As for the person behind Simeon, seemingly on the lookout, he was also identified. He was a friend of Simeon's, also a teenager, and now the police were certain that Simeon was definitely the one who launched this attack on Nathan that resulted in him losing his life and leaving his wife, unborn child, and his family behind, battling with unbearable grief. What was so infuriating was the way that Simeon attacked Nathan. The cousin went on to explain how Simeon subdued Nathan, and he said that Simeon saw Nathan walking down the road and ordered him to stop. He then cornered him into an area and told Nathan to take off his clothes. Once he did and Nathan's hands were up in the air, Simeon pulled the trigger. No explanation, no persuasion, no altercation. It was just a spur-of-the-moment decision for Simeon to end an innocent person's life, a practical stranger's life, without any reason at all. The police also talked to another man who said that Simeon woke up early in the morning on April 1st and told him that the police were looking for him. When this man asked Simeon what he did, Simeon went on to explain that he got into a physical altercation with someone. One thing led to another, and he fired a single round at the man. Now, this is all a lie, as you might have known by now. Nathan was a complying victim. He never once tried to get into a fight with Simeon. He did exactly as he was told to do, and even then he still tragically lost his life. So the police had everything they wanted, and with luck on the police's side, Simeon had finally pulled through the surgery. Why is it that the bad guys often make it out of these death-defying situations, but innocent people like Nathan, who literally had no fault, lose their lives? But anyway, the police presented all of this evidence pinning Simeon and his acquaintance at the crime scene. And for once, Simeon couldn't defend himself. He was immediately arrested and charged with the murder of Nathan Trapuzzano, and he was put in custody. He was also charged with armed robbery and carrying a firearm without a license. Simeon's firearm also matched the same .40 caliber weapon used in both the firearm robbery and Nathan's attack. So Simeon here was trapped, and there was nowhere to run. While building the case against Simeon, the police were finding more and more disturbing things about this teen. First of all, he had several run-ins with the law, and he was actually on probation. He'd racked up 26 juvenile charges in the last 6 years alone. If you do the math, Simeon was an outlaw by the age of 10. Even saying this out loud is mind-boggling. His probation officer was also a piece of work, who didn't see anything wrong with Simeon not being present for most of his meetings. Moreover, Simeon was also due to attend a court hearing on 13 probation violations, but he never showed up. Simeon was out on the streets, free to do whatever he wanted. What was even more alarming was the fact that Simeon had actually attacked another innocent man sometime before Nathan's attack. It was March 30th, just 2 days before Nathan's attack, that Simeon had bumped into a random man while passing him by on the street, and it was a pretty innocent situation. Well, Simeon glared at the man, who was the owner of a steak and lemonade shop, and then, totally out of the blue, fired a single round at him. It seems to me that attacking people for no apparent reason is just Simeon's MO. The man was injured, but luckily he did survive. Simeon was to be tried as an adult, but since he was 16 when he attacked Nathan, the prosecution was in for a ride. The state knew that getting a life in prison sentence was going to be nearly impossible, but they were going to fight to the end to get the maximum and harshest sentence possible. And so Simeon's trial began. Even though what he had done angered everyone to the depths of their core, his behavior going in and out of court irked everyone even more so. He was smiling and laughing while being escorted to and from court as if he hadn't just committed the murder of an innocent man. The prosecution presented their arguments and why he should be given the harshest sentence. He took an innocent person's life without any reason at all, and simply for the heck of it. Their star witness was none other than Simeon's friend, who was with him at the time of Nathan's attack. The prosecution decided not to charge the lookout boy, aka Simeon's friend, and used his testimony to prosecute Simeon. The defense, on the other hand, played the troubled childhood card. See, Simeon had lost his mom to a tragic drowning accident when he was just a year old, and his dad was behind bars more than he was home. So the defense argued that Simeon was just misunderstood and troubled. Now, I'm sorry for what Simeon went through as a kid, but having a troubled childhood doesn't give anyone the right to murder innocent people. Well, in the end, Simeon was found guilty and sentenced to 55 years in prison, which is not nearly enough if you ask me. He was also sentenced to a consecutive 12-year sentence for the attack on the steak and lemonade owner. Also, remember Simeon's probation officer, who really just wasn't good at his job? Well, he resigned shortly after everything went down with Nathan's attack. If you ask me, he should have been reprimanded as well, but he got off scot-free. A few weeks after Nathan's sudden attack and passing, Jennifer brought tiny Cecilia Marie into the world. When everyone saw the baby girl, they were taken aback at how much she looked like Nathan. Everyone was over the moon over this pint-sized addition to the family. But the fact that Nathan wasn't there to hold his daughter, the one he was so excited to meet and raise and love, it was tearing at everyone's hearts. The community was also there for Jennifer and her baby. A GoFundMe was set up for funeral expenses and to support Nathan's family, including Jennifer and Cecilia. Jennifer also went on to get a PhD, and she's now a physician's assistant. Jennifer still wears her husband's wedding band around her neck as a necklace, and she never takes it off, and it reminds her that no matter how hard life can get, a part of Nathan is still there cheering her on, as he always did when he was alive. Now, she has a daughter who's the only living and breathing memory of her husband, and she loves Cecilia to pieces. What's so amazing about Jennifer is that she's still so graceful towards her husband's murderer. She's already forgiven that vile man for taking her husband away from her family. And all because she didn't want to consume all of her time and energy on resenting and hating someone so unimportant. She had so much grace, and it's unbelievable. Nathan's workplace, Ivy Tech Community College, also granted baby Cecilia a scholarship for her future studies. So even though Nathan wasn't around to help raise the funds to send his daughter to college, his coworkers happily stepped in to take his place. The Trapuzzano family also set up the Nathan Trapuzzano Memorial Fund, which holds an annual walk for Nathan and several fundraising events to help children who have lost their parents. The fact that Cecilia will never get to meet her dad and experience all the things girls do with their dads is heartbreaking. Nathan would have been a wonderful dad, and I'm sure Cecilia would have been a daddy's girl all the way. But at the end of the day, I think it's best to just focus on how heartwarming it is to see how far this community was willing to go to ensure that both Jennifer and Cecilia continue to feel the love and warmth that Nathan would have provided if only he were still here. The power of this strong little community is truly inspirational. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of True Crime Stories. I wanted to give a special thank you to a couple channel members, including Brandon Cash and Patricia Shaw. If you want to become a member of the channel, you'll gain access to new videos sometimes days or weeks before they're uploaded to the public, and it is a great way to support the channel and help out, and I appreciate all of you guys that have decided to do that. If you want to join, you can click that big join button below the video, or find the link down in the description. And don't forget, True Crime Stories t-shirts are also now available. You can grab one of those from a link down in the description as well. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, check out this other interesting case I covered. And don't forget to subscribe. It's totally free and just keeps you up to date with all my future videos. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.